When I discovered my disabled mother literally chained to our front porch by the HOA president, I figured we were coping with a garden variety neighborhood bully, but the FBI agents who stormed the next HOA meeting uncovered something much more nefarious. Why had they been surveilling us all along? The chains clanged against metal as I let fall my grocery bag's eggs smashing on our driveway. Mom! My voice cracked. Seeing her bound to our porch railing, her wheelchair pushed out of reach, the morning air bit at my skin, but nothing compared to the ice in my veins when I saw Karen Mitchell standing there, bolt cutters dangling from her perfectly manicured fingers. Your mother violated Code 47B, Karen announced, adjusting her designer sunglasses with her other hand. Disabled residents can't be left alone on front porches longer than 15 minutes. Mom's arthritis-bent hand shook against the chill metal links. Amy, I was only getting some fresh air, she whispered, her voice cracking. I've been cooped up all week. I hurried forward, struggling with the chain lock. This is assault. You can't chain a disabled woman to her own home. My finger trembled with anger as I struggled to unbind her. Karen's smile became pointed. The HOA board granted me full enforcement powers. Read your contract. Contract? I spat. What contract states you can physically bind individuals? The one your mother signed when she moved in? Karen produced her phone, scrolling carelessly. Section 12, paragraph 4. The HOA reserves the right to take such measures as may be necessary in order to ensure compliance with community standards. Mom's eyes welled up with tears. I never signed up for this. I finally got the chains off and assisted Mom back into her wheelchair. Her wrists had angry red marks where the metal had chafed. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Karen shrugged. Officer Davidson is my brother-in-law. Apart from that, I have records of all the breaches as I wheeled Mom in. I saw something unusual, a black sedan parked on the opposite side of the street, engine idling. The windows were too dark to observe inside, but I felt being observed once inside. I enveloped Mom with her favorite blanket and prepared her tea. Her hands continued to shake as she picked the cup. Amy, I'm sorry you had to witness that. Sorry, Mom. You're the one who got hurt here. I picked up my phone to record her injuries. This is more than HOA overreach. This is criminal. They've been ratcheting it up for weeks, Mom confessed quietly. First, it was complaints about my service dogs barking. Even though Max only barks when I need assistance, then they informed me my wheelchair ramp was not the correct shade of beige. Why did you not inform me? She turned away. You work very hard already. I did not wish to be an added burden, Mom. Stop. I knelt next to her chair. You are not a burden. You are my mother, and no one particularly, not some power-hungry HOA president, gets to treat you this way. I spent the afternoon making calls to lawyers, but none would accept our case. Hosts have sweeping authority. They all said it is costly to fight them and generally futile by the evening. I was searching online when an email appeared. Notice of further violations. Karen had fined us $5,000 for wheelchair track damage on our lawn and $500 for unauthorized restraint removal. This is insane, I grumbled, skimming our HOA papers. That's when I discovered it hidden in subsection following subsection language, which was willfully ambiguous on measures of enforcement. Mom rolled into my office. There's that car again, she said, pointing towards the window. The black sedan had not moved as I observed the driver's window, having been lowered by a fraction. I caught a glimpse of what appeared to be a camera lens before it rolled back up to Mom. How long has that vehicle been sitting watching our home? She considered for a moment. 2 weeks shortly after I brought that grievance against Karen using HOA money for landscaping. Her own. My skin crawled. You brought a complaint? I did notice some anomalies in the funds at the recent meeting. Karen's been charging the HOA for work completed on her own. Suddenly the chains did make sense. This wasn't about porch trespassings. It was about quieting Mom the morning after I discovered our trash cans pushed in to block Mom's wheelchair ramp. On one of them, a note had been taped. Bins have to be out of sight. $200 fine if you don't comply. As I rearranged them, our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, came racing over. I knew who did it. She said, Karen's son around 3 a.m. I have security camera. Why the hush? She looked around frantically because Karen has eyes everywhere. She got the Patels thrown out last month for displaying prayer flags, told them they were unauthorized outdoor. Decorations, that's discrimination shoe. Mrs. Rodriguez pushed something into my hand, a USB drive. There's more on here, be careful back inside. I plugged in the drive. Dozens of videos depicted Karen and her cohorts bullying residents, relocating trash cans, taking photos of houses at unusual times, even altering mailboxes. Mom, check out this. We watched video after video creating a timeline of bullying. A trend emerged. All targets had either questioned Karen's rule or had some sort of disability that night. Another email came. Emergency HOA meeting. Disciplinary action was needed. The subject line dropped my stomach. Our resident Margaret Thompson, several infractions, they're coming after you. Again, I told Mom. Sat up straight in her chair. Let them try. I didn't live through 3 tours in Afghanistan to be intimidated by a suburban dictator at the meeting. Karen had prepared a presentation of Mom's infractions, grass blade height differences, unauthorized bird feeder overuse of handicap parking. Each slide elicited murmurs from the audience. Mrs. Thompson has racked up more than $10,000 in fines. Karen stated we need to look into foreclosure proceedings. I stood up. This is harassment, plain and simple. Sit down, Miss Thompson. You're not an owner, you don't have a voice here, but I do, declared a man in the back. Other voices chimed in. Residents Mom had assisted throughout the years. Karen's face reened as support grew order. She struck her gavel. The board will vote foreclosure as the board was about to vote. The meeting room doors swung open. A man in a dark suit entered, scanning the room. His eyes rested on Karen, then on us. Don't stop on my account, he said. Sitting in the back, Karen stumbled. Who are you? Just a concerned citizen? He pulled out a notebook. The board voted, but 2 members unexpectedly agreed with us. Karen's perfect control was cracking after the meeting. The man in the suit came up to us. Mrs. Thompson. Interesting presentation tonight. Do I know you, Mom asked. He handed her a business card. It was blank, except for a phone number. If things escalate further, call this number. He walked away before we could ask questions in the parking lot. We discovered our car key, deep scratches, spelling leave. The black sedan was nowhere to be found, but somehow I felt less isolated that evening, reviewing the USB files again. I discovered something that made my blood freeze. Property records indicating Karen's husband's business had bought 6 houses in our neighborhood, all of which were owned by disabled residents. I looked at Mom sleeping peacefully with Max curled at her feet. Tomorrow I'd begin connecting dots tonight. I'd coordinate our counterattack. The war for Silverbrook Estates had really started. Rain pounded our windows as I scattered documents across the dining table. 3 days since the meeting, Mom's fines doubled. Now they accused her service dog's breathing of disturbing the peace, and her handicap ramp broke architectural harmony standards. They can't be serious, Mom said, reading the latest notice. Max has a medical certification? They're not attempting to be serious. Mom, they're attempting to bury us in fees and paperwork until we quit. The doorbell rang through the peephole. I saw my best friend Sarah soaked from the rain carrying a pile of folders. You won't believe what I found, she said, dashing inside. As a paralegal, Sarah had access to public-kept records most individuals never even thought to check. She laid out papers on our table overlapping with my own work. Every single house the Mitchells purchased had the same disabled resident HOA fees escalating for sale, then flipped for triple the amount that's certainly illegal. I told her if we can establish intent, but look at this. She pulled out a highlighted document, Karen's maiden name, Harrison, as in Harrison Development Corp., the company buying all these properties. Mom leaned forward, so it's a family business? A corrupt one, Sarah added. They've been doing this across 3 states. The power suddenly cut out, plunging us into darkness. Max growled his first sound all day, probably the storm, Mom said, but her voice wavered. I picked up my phone for light and looked at our security cameras. They were dead as well through the window. I saw every other house had electricity. This isn't the storm, I whispered. A knock on the back door startled us all. I picked up Mom's old baseball bat and moved toward it through the glass. I saw Mrs. Rodriguez with a flashlight. They cut your power line, she said when I opened the door. I could see them from my kitchen, Karen's son and 2 other men. Did you call the police? She shook her head. The police chief is Karen's cousin, but I filmed it. She gave me her phone. The video revealed 3 figures in HOA jackets cutting our power line as clear as day. This is proof of criminal tampering, Sarah said. We need to, a crash from the living room, cut her off. Someone had thrown a brick through our front window. Attached was a note, final warning. Mom wheeled herself to the broken glass, fury replacing fear. Enough playing defense the next morning, despite having no power. We launched our counterattack. Sarah filed complaints with the State Housing Authority, while I contacted local news stations. You want a story about HOA corruption? I told the reporter, I've got proof of systematic discrimination against disabled residents. In a matter of hours, a news van parked on the street outside Karen popped up right away. Designer shoes, heels clicking on pavement. This is private property, she informed the crew. No filming without HOA consent, public street. The reporter first encountered First Amendment, as they had an argument. I gave the news crew our proof, the USB videos, property records, and last night's power line video. This is slander, Karen screeched when she came to understand what was going on. I'll see you into bankruptcy. Truth is an absolute defense against slander, Sarah shouted out, garnering a death glare. The segment aired that night on a generator-powered TV. Karen appeared unhinged, screaming about property values while we presented calmly evidence of discrimination. Our phones rang with calls from other victims. The Jamalin family shared that Karen had phoned their Ramadan decorations terrorist symbols. Mr. Soto recounted being fined for using a cane without HOA permission. We need to mobilize. Mom announced by midnight. We started a Facebook group, Silverbrook Survivors. Within hours, we had 50 members. Karen retaliated quickly. The following morning, a locksmith was replacing our locks for closure proceedings. He explained apologetically. HOA orders, they can't foreclose that quickly, I protested. Emergency powers clause? Karen smirked from the sidewalk, didn't read the fine print. Sarah was already on the phone with legal aid. They need a court order. This is a legal eviction. The locksmith hesitated. I don't want trouble, then leave, Mom said firmly, because trouble is exactly what you'll get if you continue. He packed up and left. Karen's face turned purple with anger. That afternoon, documenting everything for our attorney, I saw the black sedan return this time. I walked right up to it. Hey, I pounded on the window. I know you're spying on us. The window rolled down a little. A deep voice asked, Step back, please. Who are you? Why are you spying on my mother? For her protection, the voice responded. Check your mailbox. Confused, I walked to our mailbox. There was a manila envelope with no stamp inside. Were photos of Karen meeting with known criminals, bank records of huge cash withdrawals, and a note, We are building a case. Keep applying pressure. I glanced back, but the sedan was nowhere to be found that night. Our Facebook group blew up with activity. Someone posted on internal HOA emails, revealing Karen talking about Operation Clean Sweep, a scheme to methodically eliminate undesirable aspects of Silverbrook. This is it, Sarah has said. This constitutes conspiracy. We had planned for a peaceful protest tomorrow. Dozens of neighborhood residents came by with signs, HOA equals harassment organization association, and people on top of property values. The police were called by Karen for allegedly trespassing upon HOA common area. Officer Davidson showed up, Karen's brother-in-law. But much to everyone's disdain, he was visibly uncomfortable. This is a lawful assembly, he had informed Karen. I can't take them down without reason. I'm your relative, she spat, and I'm an oath officer. The law is the priority as the protest raged on. A news helicopter flew overhead. Our tale was trending that evening. Mom got a call from the mysterious number on the empty business card. Mrs. Thompson, tomorrow 9 a.m. Federal courthouse, bring all you have. Who is this? Somebody who's been waiting for Karen Mitchell to slip up. She just did a huge one after the phone call. I caught Mom gazing at some old photo album. Amy, I need to tell you something, she said before I got retired. I was working in military intelligence. I was looking into housing discrimination against veterans. My jaw hit the floor. You were looking into this sort of thing until my disability made me retire early, but I never ceased to observe Karen aiming at me. That wasn't coincidental. Someone informed her about my past. So when they chained you to the porch, they were threatening to silence me. But they made a mistake choosing the wrong veteran to harass. As we were preparing to attend the courthouse meeting, our phones rang with breaking news, FBI raids, HOA president's home. The screen displayed agents taking boxes from Karen's home while she screamed about constitutional rights. Mom smiled grimly. The chains that held me captive just became the proof that will put her in prison. The war wasn't won, but the tide had finally changed in our direction. Your mother is a burden to this community. Those words were still echoing in my ears when the HOA meeting room doors burst open. 5 men in black suits burst in their FBI badges shining under the fluorescent lighting. Everyone stayed seated. The lead agent's voice thundered through the abruptly quiet room. Karen's face went ghost white as she let go of her papers, sending them flapping to the floor like dead leaves. I stood transfixed as the agent strode directly to Karen. Karen Mitchell, you are under arrest for federal housing discrimination, elder abuse, and racketeering. What this absurd? Karen screamed, retreating until she rebounded off the whiteboard. I'm the president of this HOA. You can't just. We can, and we are the agent. Cut her off, creating handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, clutched my arm. Amy, did you know about this? I shook my head, as confused as everybody else. But then I thought about the black sedan, the radio chatter I'd heard they've been observing. Karen, not us, you set me up. Karen screamed at me as they cuffed her, you and your crippled mother. The room gasped. Even Karen's most staunch supporters looked amazed at her words. In fact, the lead agent said, turning to face me, we've been investigating Mrs. Mitchell for 6 months. Your mother isn't her first victim, but thanks to your evidence, she'll be the last. My evidence, I'd only complained to the city last week because they had led Karen out still ranting about conspiracies. The agent came up to me. Miss Thompson, I'm Agent Rodriguez. We need to have a word. The other HOA board members sat stuck like deer in headlights. Rodriguez spoke to them. This meeting is adjourned. We'll be contacting each of you. People scurried like roaches when the lights go on within minutes. Only Sarah, I, and Mom were left with the FBI agents. How long have you known? I asked Rodriguez. Once we were not around anymore. Long enough to recognize your mother in danger, he told me. But we needed documented proof of physical abuse when Mitchell switched your mother to that porch. She presented us with the very thing that we needed. Mom wheeled out. You were used as bait. No, ma'am. We were guarding you. We had agents standing by to step in. If things got out of hand as they did, Sarah. Ever the paralegal burst in. What about the other victims? The scheme of targeting disabled residents? Rodriguez nodded. We've tracked 37 cases over 3 states. The Mitchells would infiltrate HOAs, systematically harass protected class residents, elderly disabled minorities, until they sold their homes cheap. Then they'd flip the properties for huge profits. But why my mom specifically, I pressed. Why chain her up? Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner. That's complicated. Can we continue this conversation at your house? 20 minutes later, we sat in our living room as Rodriguez spread files across our coffee table. Pictures of other victims, financial statements, email chains. The scope was astonishing. Mrs. Thompson, Rodriguez started, are you cognizant that Karen Mitchell's husband was in the same military unit as you? Mom's coffee cup rattled against its saucer. That's impossible, I'd recall. Not at the same time, Rodriguez explained he was discharged for misconduct 2 years after you retired, but he had access to personnel files. My stomach fell. He knew Mom was military intelligence, we believe. So when the Mitchells relocated to Silverbrook and noticed your mother's name on the residents list, they panicked. They figured she could be investigating them. Mom laughed cynically. I've been retired for 10 years. I just wanted to enjoy my garden. Their paranoia was your shield? Rodriguez explained they were so intent on neutralizing you as a threat, they let themselves get sloppy. The physical restraint, the blatant discrimination. It all left a paper trail. Sarah was seething, taking notes. What about the rest of the board members? Are they complicit? Some of them. We're trying to figure out who knew what. Rodriguez pulled out a file. But here's the interesting part. 3 board members approached us last month, afraid of Karen, but not sure how to put the brakes on her, who I want to say now. But they've been feeding us data. Mom rubbed her temples, so all this time when I believed my neighbors despised me. Some were afraid of losing their homes if they defended you. Rodriguez concluded Karen Mitchell governed by fear. The doorbell rang, startling us all. Rodriguez's hand went to his hip, where I believed he carried his gun, but relaxed when Sarah looked into the peephole. It's Mrs. Peterson? And a couple of others. Rodriguez nodded. Let them in. It's time the neighborhood knew the truth. What happened next was surreal. Neighbors, I thought, supported Karen filed in many in tears. Mrs. Peterson spoke first. Amy, your mother. We wanted to help, but Karen threatened to foreclose on our homes. She had dirt on everyone. Mr. Jameson, who'd complained about Mom's wheelchair ramp, hung his head. She said she'd report my son's visa status. If I didn't file complaints, story after story poured out. Karen had blackmailed, threatened, and manipulated the entire neighborhood. The fake violations against Mom were just the tip of the iceberg. Why didn't anyone call the police? I asked, frustration building. We did, Mrs. Peterson said. But Karen's brother-in-law is a sergeant. Complaints disappeared. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's why the FBI got involved. Local corruption? Mom reached for my hand. Amy, honey. I knew something was wrong. That's why I insisted on sitting on the porch that day. You knew she'd escalate? I stared at her in disbelief. I knew she'd do something stupid if I pushed her buttons. I just didn't expect chains. Mom's military bearing returned occasionally. You must allow the other side to overplay their hand. Rodriguez smiled. Your mother's instincts haven't gotten any weaker. She made our tasks so much easier. So what do we do now? Sarah asked. Now we take down the whole operation. We have enough material to topple not only the Mitchells, but their whole organization. But we need your assistance. Our assistance, I repeated, testifying, offering documents, and Rodriguez hesitated. We'd like to utilize your home as a command center. Karen's accomplices don't realize they're compromised yet. Mom straightened in her wheelchair. You want to conduct a sting operation out of my living room if you're game? I gazed at Mom, thinking about everything she'd been through, the humiliation, the pain, the loneliness. Then I noticed the fire in her eyes. The same fire that had seen her through 20 years of military life. They played with the wrong clan. Mom declared, when do we begin? Rodriguez smiled. How about now? We've got surveillance gear in the van as agents started placing cameras and computers in our spare room, turning it into something out of a spy movie. Our doorbell rang again. This time, Rodriguez himself answered. A man in a fancy suit stood there, briefcase in hand. I'm Kenneth Mitchell's lawyer, he declared. I have a message for Mrs. Thompson. Rodriguez stepped aside, allowing him to view the room full of FBI agents and equipment. The lawyer's calm was broken. Perhaps I should return later, he stuttered. No, Mom called out. Deliver your message. We're all friends here. The lawyer swallowed hard. Mr. Mitchell is willing to make a large settlement if you drop all charges and sign a non-disclosure agreement. The room went quiet, then Mom burst out laughing, a full, rich sound I hadn't heard in months. Tell Mr. Mitchell, she said kindly, that he can take his settlement and shove it somewhere the sun doesn't shine. I'm just getting started. The lawyer skirted away like a rat from a sinking ship, and our house became FBI headquarters. Before my eyes, agents installed cameras, computers, and recording devices, as Mom guided traffic from her wheelchair like a general directing troops. Put that camera there, she instructed, pointing at a bookshelf. It'll record anyone coming up to the front door. Rodriguez grinned with pleasure. Mrs. Thompson, you're a natural at this, 20 years in the military intelligence, Mom smirked. You think this is my first rodeo? That's when the bombshell fell. Rodriguez drew me aside, his face stern. Amy, there's something else you should know. Your mother wasn't any intelligence officer. What do you mean? She was an expert in domestic terrorism and organized crime before she retired? She was investigating patterns of housing discrimination throughout the country. My jaw dropped. She never told me she couldn't. Most of what she did remains classified. Rodriguez shot a look at Mom, who was demonstrating to an agent how to conceal a microphone. We believe she sensed something in Karen Mitchell's actions that tapped into her old skills. That's why she kept meticulous records of each transgression. I realized she was compiling evidence exactly. Your mom's been assisting us without even realizing it. Sarah slammed through the front door, laptop in hand. You two need to see this. We all surrounded as she sat up social media. Karen's arrest video went viral, but that wasn't what caught my eye. Look at the comments, Sarah scrolled down. There are dozens of people from different neighborhoods are sharing similar accounts of the Mitchells' business. The scale was larger than we'd ever dreamed. Screenshots of intimidating emails, photos of destroyed homes, Family testimony forced to sell. It was all here. This is perfect. Rodriguez said public pressure will make it more difficult for them to sweep. This mom rolled over, talking about pressure. When do we initiate the sting operation tonight? We've identified 3 HOA board members, still working with Kenneth Mitchell. They think Karen's arrest was just about the chain incident. They don't know. We have evidence of the whole scheme. What's the plan? I asked. Simple, we leak information that your mother has documents proving the conspiracy. Then we wait to see who comes looking for them. You're using Mom as bait again? No, Mom interjected firmly. I'm volunteering. These people terrorized our neighbors. They caused Mrs. Peterson's husband to die believing he'd lose his house. They threatened to send the Jameson boy back. Someone has to put a stop to them. That night we carried out the plan. Sarah put up on the neighborhood Facebook group that Mom had discovered interesting papers while cleaning out our files in an hour. Our security cameras captured someone creeping around our backyard. That's Tom Reynolds, I whispered, looking at the monitor. He's on the HOA board. Tom tried our back door and then switched to a window. What he did not know was that agents were inside our garage, FBI freeze. They caught him red-handed with lockpicks and a flashlight. In questioning, he divulged everything: names, dates, bank accounts. The Mitchells have been bribing board members to harass residents. But Tom disclosed something more. Karen keeps the real keeps in a safety deposit box. Everything: the bribes, the threats, the forged documents where Rodriguez requested First National Bank Box 307, but only she can open it. Rodriguez made a phone call 20 minutes later. He had news. Judge issued a warrant. We're opening that box tomorrow morning. First, Mom yawned with great drama. Well, this old lady needs her rest. Crime fighting is hard work at my age. After everyone departed, I found Mom in the kitchen looking out the window. You all right? I asked. I spent years combating corruption behind the scenes. She said gently. I thought retirement was about leaving all that in the past. But evil doesn't retire, does it? Is that why you never told me what your true job was? She wheeled her chair around to face me. I wanted you to have a regular life. Not one looking over your shoulder, suspicious of everyone. But you trained me anyway, didn't you? All those games we played growing up, teaching me to pay attention to details: read, people think strategically. Mom smiled, guilty as charged. A mother prepares her child for the world she knows. The next morning, Rodriguez called with updates. We got the safety deposit box. Karen documented everything, like she was proud of it. We discovered files dating back 15 years in 6 states. How many families? I asked. At least 200, primarily elderly, disabled, or minorities. The millions were made by the Mitchells. But more was there. Amy, we also discovered something personal. Karen had a file on your mother: military records, medical info, even surveillance pictures. She was obsessed. Why your mother testified against her father 20 years ago. He was running a similar scam against veterans. She did not recognize the name. Mitchell Karen went by. Her married name. The pieces fell into place. This was revenge, partially, but also intimidation. Karen knew that if anyone was going to uncover her, it would be your mother that afternoon. Our neighborhood had an emergency meeting in the community center. Without Karen's threats, people opened up. The stories were heartbreaking. They persuaded me my autism rendered me an unsuitable neighbor, one young man spoke. Said my cultural ornamentation transgressed aesthetic requirements. Mrs. Kim continued, they sought to prohibit my guide dog. A resident who was blind exposed. Mom heard every testimony, her notebook full of names and dates. When everyone was done, she wheeled to the front of the room. I failed you all. She started, her voice firm but emotional. I saw the warning signs but thought I was paranoid. My training should have no Mrs. Peterson in. Interrupted. You were the only one courageous enough to resist. Murmurs of affirmation filled the room. Then Mr. Jameson stood. I gestured to elect Mrs. Thompson as interim HOA president. The vote was unanimous that night as we partied with neighbors who'd become friends. Rodriguez pulled me aside one last time. The Mitchell's attorney called us. They want to offer a deal: full confession for lessened sentences. Will you accept it? No. We have sufficient evidence to bury them. Besides, your mother provided us with something interesting. What happens? She retained copies of each classified report she ever submitted, legal ones she was allowed to keep. including a 10-year-old investigation into housing discrimination that mentions shell companies matching the Mitchells pattern. I laughed. She knew all along, not specifically, but she suspected that's why she moved here after your father passed. She was hunting without realizing it. Looking at Mom, surrounded by grateful neighbors, I saw her not as disabled mother, who requires protection, but the warrior she had always been standing up to injustice, even from her wheelchair. Some never really retire. Rodriguez noted. No, I agreed, seeing Mom mobilize committees and assign responsibilities. They just acquire new battlefronts as sundown fell at Silverbrook Estates. Children played freely in yards, where once fear reigned. Neighbors assisted one another without suspicion, and at the core of it all sat my mother, the woman whom they attempted to chain down, now breaking chains for everyone else. Amy flip on Channel 7 presently. Sarah's cracked voice rang through my phone as I washed red paint off our garage door. The word traitors still bled through despite my efforts. I rushed inside, where Mom sat comforting our service dog, Max, who'd vomited the poisoned meat we'd discovered in our backyard. The TV came alive, displaying Karen Mitchell on the courthouse steps, microphone in hand. These people need special treatment, Karen yelled to the crowd gathered there. They use their disabilities to hide while ruining our property values, an American way of life. My stomach fell. Behind her were at least 50 supporters who held signs, "Save our neighborhood," and "No special rights." Mom held my hand. She's making it about something larger. Within an hour, protesters stood along our street, half supported us with signs reading "Justice for Veterans" and "End HOA Abuse." The other half yelled Karen's talking points about property values and special attention. Our peaceful community had turned into a war zone. We must do something before this turns violent. I explained Mom sitting in our window as disagreements broke out among the groups. She nodded already on her way to her wheelchair. Take me outside. Mom, no too risky. Honey, a face uglier than angry neighbors. Her military steel gleamed in her eyes at times. You need to confront confrontation, Hedden. As we arrived at our front door, Mrs. Peterson, who lives next door, showed up on our porch. I'm coming with you, she stated, leaning on her walker. Karen threatened my family too. Then Mr. and Mrs. Jamalton joined us. We stand together, Mr. Jamaluddin asserted firmly. More neighbors came out of their houses, the Garsas, with their autistic son, old Mr. Thompson with his oxygen tank. Then Gwyn's, whose daughter used a wheelchair. Individuals Karen had been threatening for years together. We walked towards the crowd. The yelling slowed as they saw us coming. Mom stood between the two groups. Listen to me, her firm voice rang across the yard. This isn't about sides, it's about how we treat each other as human beings. A man wearing his Save Our Neighborhood shirt came forward. You people are destroying everything. What's your name? Mom asked quietly. Tom Wilson. Tom, do you know what I was doing when Karen shamed me to my porch? I was enjoying the garden. Your daughter helped me plant last spring. Remember? She earned her Girl Scout badge teaching me about roses. Tom's face went soft. Mom went on, I served 20 years defending everyone's rights, including your right to disagree with me. But when did the desire to live with dignity become un-American? Phones came out, taping every word someone live-streamed to Facebook. Look around. Mom pointed to our diverse group of neighbors. We're not seeking special treatment, we're seeking to be treated. Like humans, Mrs. Peterson stood up. Karen fined me $3,000 because my husband needed a wheelchair ramp. Following his stroke, described it as an eyesore. The Jamalutans recounted how Karen referred to their Ramadan decorations as foreign trash one by one. Victims recounted their experiences. The mood of the crowd changed. Some of Karen's supporters dropped their signs, looking embarrassed. But the property values, someone complained weakly. My house value decreased 30% after my husband passed away. Mrs. Peterson responded, not because of his wheelchair ramp, but because good neighbors kept moving away, frightened of Karen's fines and rules. That resonated. People began grumbling about their own HOA experience. Tom Wilson was the first to defect. He ripped off his Save Our Neighborhood tee and came over to us. I'm sorry, he told Mom. I didn't know. Others soon followed. Most of Karen's supporters had switched to our side that evening. Our video went viral. Our chain veteran and Arjar's HOA justice trended. Nationwide news vans showed up by morning agent Rodriguez called This changes everything. We're receiving calls from HOA victims nationwide. The Mitchell investigation just grew to 16 states. But our victory party was cut short by breaking news. Karen had vanished with $2 million from the HOA account. Her husband appeared on camera, sweating profusely. I had no idea what she was doing. She left this note saying she'd rather die than go to prison. The words of the note chilled me. This isn't over. They'll pay for ruining everything I've built. Mom looked grim. She's escalating people, this desperate do desperate things at 3 a.m. We woke to Max barking wildly through the window. We saw fire someone had lit the community center, where we'd kept all our evidence against Karen, in sirens blaring and pajamas-clad neighbors. I knew this wasn't about an HOA anymore. Karen had made war fire trucks fought the fire while I called Agent Rodriguez. Frantically, all our evidence was inside the documents, recordings, everything calmed down. Rodriguez said, "We backed up everything to FBI servers yesterday. Karen doesn't know that. But the damage was done. Fear rippled through our community. Again, 2 families moved out that week, spooked by the arson. Then came the email blast to every resident, you think you've won. Watch what happens next. Security cameras started malfunctioning, pets went missing, car tires were slashed, Karen was scaring us from behind. We need to lure her out. Mom planned in an emergency meeting in our living room. She's falling apart. Desperate individuals make errors. Sarah came up with an idea. What if we declared that we discovered additional evidence, something she doesn't know? We supported us. We planned our trap. Well, I posted on social media, found Karen's secret second set of books hidden in Mom's old military footlocker, turning them over to FBI tomorrow. Mom played along, making a big show of moving a locked footlocker to our garage that night. We waited. Rodriguez had agents hidden throughout the neighborhood at 2 a.m. A figure crept toward our garage flood. Lights flashed. FBI, don't move. But it wasn't Karen. It was her husband, David Mitchell. Please, he pleaded as they handcuffed him. She made me do it. She's been videotaping all of this on hidden cameras that she put in months ago. The news shook me. Karen had been tracking the whole neighborhood. Where is she? Rodriguez asked. Canada. David wept. She has a forged passport, but she's returning. She said she has one more surprise in store. 3 days later, at Karen's sentencing hearing in absentia, we found out what that surprise was. She'd retained an attorney to bring a huge countersuit against every resident who'd testified, charging defamation and conspiracy. The judge looked appalled as he reviewed the filing. Mrs. Mitchell, wherever you are, let me be clear. You chained a disabled veteran to her home. You terrorized families. You embezzled funds. And now you're trying to abuse the legal system. He turned to us. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, I'm issuing a bench warrant for Mrs. Mitchell's arrest and freezing all of her assets. But the best part was yet to come. Mrs. Amy's mother, the judge turned to Mom. Would you please come to the bench? Mom wheeled forward. Ma'am, I've seen your record of military service. Your service investigating housing discrimination was outstanding. It's only fitting that you carry on that task. He smiled. I'm designating you special advisor to the court for all HOA-related matters in this district. The courtroom erupted in applause 2 weeks later. Karen was caught trying to sneak back into the country. The Canadian Border Patrol recognized her from our viral video. At her real sentencing, she remained defiant. You're all sheep. I was protecting property values. The judge wasn't impressed. 15 years, federal prison plus restitution to every family. You harmed as marshals led her away. Karen locked eyes with Mom. You ruined everything. Mom answered quietly. No, Karen, you destroyed yourself the moment you put chains on another human being. The aftermath brought deep transformation. Our neighborhood voted its first Democratic HOA board. Mom was made president, introducing equitable policies that defended everyone's rights. The FBI broadened their probe across the country, revealing similar scams in 200 communities. Mom testified before Congress, and new federal protections against HOA abuse were established. Our community healing process took months later. We have potlucks constructed, wheelchair, accessible gardens, and established a neighborhood watch that actually looked out for one another, not merely property values. A year later, at our inaugural annual Unity Festival, Agent Rodriguez took me aside. Remember questioning why the FBI was surveilling your mom had reached out to us months in advance of the chaining. I think she suspected Karen's plan was, and I was collecting evidence Mom overheard and winked. Military intelligence tendencies die hard. I laughed, so you knew all along. Not everything she admitted, but enough to be prepared when Karen finally went too far. Today, Silverbrook Estates is known not for its property values, but for its values of inclusion and compassion. Mom's Legal Defense Fund has helped hundreds of HOA abuse victims nationally. And Karen, she writes us letters in prison still maintaining she was correct. We utilize them as examples in Mom's training courses for New Age oath boards. Ideal demonstrations of the way power without compassion becomes tyranny. The chains intended to hold us together instead create an unbreakable community. At times, the darkest acts ignite the brightest transformations,